Hi there, I'm Alana and welcome to Button Bash. Let's talk about Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn. This is actually the first Dynasty Warriors game that I've played, and I played it on the PlayStation 3, though it is also available on the PlayStation Vita. It's also the fourth game in the Dynasty Warriors Gundam series. Above all else, Gundam Reborn is a hack-and-slash style brawler that has you control a badass mech, which, for those who don't know, is basically a giant robot. In this case, a Gundam. You stab, fly, slide, beat down and disintegrate literally thousands of enemy Gundams in a small variety of different battlegrounds, including the ever-awesome deep space. While the combat feels more hacky than anything, the fast-paced ridiculousness of giant robots just slaughtering each other is genuine arcade-style fun. You can smash out combos, which are pretty simple to master, or charge up ranged attacks and really hack away at the huge amount of enemies, but that likely won't be enough to keep you playing. The main campaign, known as Official Mode, is around 20 hours long and has a pretty accurately detailed story that mimics the style of Gundam anime. Oh, and there isn't actually any English voice acting. It's probably the most Japanese game I have ever played. The story itself doesn't actually mix all that well with the gameplay though, since it's mostly only integrated into the battles by making you jump between different sides every time a little alert pops up. You usually just have to rescue an ally or capture a control point, and that is pretty stressful, but in a good way. It gives you a really specific objective to focus on rather than just throwing enemies at you, which can sometimes feel a little repetitive. Actually, everything about the game is kind of repetitive when it comes down to it, and I expect only the most dedicated players will really invest a lot of time in it because of that. It's best played in 1 or 2 hour chunks. The customization, though, is a real standout. You can upgrade your own player stats as well as change the effects of weapons pretty specifically. You can change the width of your beam shot for one. You basically grind for resources throughout the repeated brawls to be able to change a pretty broad variety of things on your Gundam or your pilot in the interest of total battle optimization. And the customization feels like a lot more than a perk, it's actually pretty necessary. The game really steadily increases in difficulty as you go along. You wouldn't get too far at all without thinking through what you're customizing, because it's actually pretty tough. Different Gundams also handle noticeably differently even without the customization, which is a pleasant surprise. Jumping into the cockpit of a new giant robot is a noticeable physical change. Some are particularly fast, others are stronger, and the game will have you take control of a few different models. That said, some parts of the game are significantly lacking. The environments are really dull and bleak, and maybe that's to compensate for the amount of color that just spurts out of the battlefield while you're in combat, but they're uglier than anything I've played in years. Blank walls and obviously repeated textures really insult how freaking awesome it is to be a giant robot massacring in the middle of space. The flying and jumping systems are also fairly awkward, and the animation just doesn't make much sense, which is pretty confusing. Sometimes the targeting system is really off, where you're aiming for the leg of a giant super strong enemy, but you've somehow managed to target the arm on the opposite side or something. There are a few other minor bugs like dialogue running when it shouldn't, or invisible walls that seem to appear out of nowhere as well. There are also a bunch of other game modes that Gundam fans particularly will enjoy playing, including split-screen co-op. Overall, it's a fairly good game, it's just that it quickly gets repetitive. I just can't help but feel like a Gundam game might be a bit more effective if it were more in action-venture style rather than being a brawler, but for what it is, it still provides hours of arcade-style fun.